try to give a damn. The skies can turn from gray to blue. Can you hear? And can you hear? We'll all be singing for joy in peace and harmony. Yes, peace and harmony. And when the people aren't hungry, and when the children aren't bruised, when our sisters and brothers can love whomever we choose, when all people of color can be allowed to live equal and free, and when the power of just a few turns into strength for us all. Can you hear? And can you hear? We'll all be singing for joy in peace and harmony. Yes, peace and harmony.
Good evening and welcome everyone. My name is Max Backer and I will be tonight's moderator on behalf of Sinister Wisdom, a multicultural lesbian literary and arts journal that for 50 years has celebrated the breadth of lesbian, queer, trans, and gender expansive creativity. As a Sinister Wisdom volunteer for 4 years, it is such a joy to gather with you tonight to celebrate the launch of Sinister Wisdom 139, Mad Dykes. This issue continues an important and ongoing exploration and thinking about madness, mental health, rage, care, imagination, and survival, particularly through a mad, queer, and trans lens. We are thrilled to have with us the editors and several contributors who make this project shine. Tonight's gathering is both a celebration and a conversation. We'll hear readings from contributing writers and from the issue's guest editor, Cavar, in dialogue about the work, the process, and the worlds the issue opens us up to, thinking about and healing through. As we begin, I want to acknowledge that we gather tonight from many homelands. Here in upstate New York, I stand on ancestral and unceded lands of the Cayuga people of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We honor their sovereignty and the ongoing struggles of Indigenous women and people across this colonized Turtle Island and beyond. And I invite each of you, if you wish, to share in the chat the land that you are joining us from. Naming the places that holds us deepens our responsibility to those lands and reminds us that queer gathering is rooted in place, history, relationships, and especially to the land. For those joining us for the first time, Sinister Wisdom has been publishing since 1976. We are a collective effort, a labor of love, resistance, and intergenerational connection. Subscriptions and sustaining support allow us to continue archiving, distributing, and uplifting the breadth of lesbian and queer creativity. I encourage you to sign up for a subscription today by going to sinisterwisdom.org/subscribe. A group of monthly sustainers is vital to Sinister Wisdom, and if you can give monthly, we so appreciate our sustainers. And you sign up as a sustainer over at sinisterwisdom.org/sustainers. Sinister Wisdom sends out emails every month when your gift comes in with behind-the-scenes details and new information about what we have coming from the journal. And we're also joined tonight by our friends at Charis Books, which is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore based in Decatur, Georgia, Metro Atlanta. And at this time, I would like to invite E.R. Anderson to join us and share a few words.
Thanks so much, Max. You did a great job. There's not much for me to say except to express appreciation for being here as part of Sinister Wisdom's ongoing 50th birthday year. It's always really exciting to get to celebrate our sister feminist institution. Charis just turned 51 in November, so we're 1 year older. But it is really exciting to me to be celebrating this issue in particular. At Caris, we used to sell a lot more bumper stickers than we do now. Now we sell the little teeny tiny water bottle stickers that everyone has, or laptop stickers. But one that we always sold really well had the quotation, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And this issue, I think, really, I haven't gotten to read it cover to cover or anything like that yet, but I think speaks to um, that idea, right? And I think many people are reckoning with what it means to be living in a sick society, and to think through the feminist implications of redefining what madness really is. So I look forward to hearing from all of you. As always, as people mention books, I'll try and put them in the chat. And if you're in Decatur, Georgia, we would love for you to come visit. We do a full slate of events all the time. Most of them are accessible online, and we do support groups and meetups, book clubs, all the things. So we'd love to have you be part of our community if you're not already. And we're so grateful to be part of yours here with Sinister Wisdom. Thanks for having us.
And thank you, ER. Let's begin with some housekeeping notes. We are recording the event this evening and we'll make it available starting tomorrow or Thursday at sinisterwisdom.org/SW139. Only the speakers will be recorded. Keep your microphone muted throughout the program unless invited to speak. If we detect noise from you, we will have to mute you. As the program proceeds, you're encouraged to engage in the chat if you want to show appreciation for the readers. Please wave your hands at the end of each reading or use the reaction emojis that Zoom provides for us. If you need technical assistance this evening, you can chat with Mel or Julie, who are on tap for technical assistance this evening. And a quick note before we begin, this event will touch on themes related to madness, mental health, and lived experiences. Please take care of yourself in whatever way you need to and step away, having a soothing drink or a little craft at your side as you gently listen in. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Cavar, guest editor of Sinister Wisdom 139. Cavar is the author of Failure to Comply from Featherproof Books in 2024 and Differential Diagnosis out of Northwestern University Press, forthcoming in 2026, with genre non-conforming writing appearances in Kairos, The Rumpus, Transgender Studies Quarterly, Electric Lit, and elsewhere. They hold a PhD in cultural studies with a concentration in science and technology studies from UC Davis, and are deeply invested in the politics of queer crip and trans mad knowledge production. Cavar is also the founding editor of ManyWorlds.place. And Cavar, I'd love to invite you to speak about what it meant to edit a mad issue for Sinister Wisdom and how this collection resists the familiar narratives around recovery and or pathology. Welcome, Cavar.
Hi, everyone. This is such a great turnout for a literary reading. I'm so excited to see you all here. And quick shout out to Charis for hosting me last year when I was touring Failure to Comply. I had such an amazing time, and it's so great to see them here too. So this is not the first mad issue of a zine or lit mag that I've curated, but I think it is perhaps the most special. Because Sinister Wisdom was one of the first magazines that accepted me back when I was a little baby 18-year-old first submitting things out into the lit mag world. And I really think what drew me to Sinister Wisdom and what drew me to lesbian literary and cultural production in general has been this long time entanglement with the politics of queerness and madness, and particularly dykehood and madness, that have sort of proliferated over the years, whether it was sort of inquiring into cis heteropatriarchal reasons for feminized people getting institutionalized, to understandings of the sexual and racial and gender politics of what being maddened means in the world. And so Sinister Wisdom always felt like not only a really wonderful and exciting place to publish, but also one that provided the sort of affective and epistemological support that mad writing really requires. And so when I was thinking about proposing this issue, I was really interested in curating perspectives on mad dykehood and mad queerness writ large, that didn't end as tidily as perhaps the narratives typically demanded of us. I make a quick sort of little jab at publications like Chicken Soup for the Soul. No shade if if you need your bag, you need your bag. Please feel free to get their money. But this is not the kind of narrative that I'm sort of interested in terms of what it means to write madness. I'm a lot more interested in narratives that are about us as people, with lives that don't necessarily have a rock bottom and conclude in a recovery. Lives that take turns for better and worse sort of over the course of years and decades. And what I found in the submissions was a really strong desire by many of the people that are here today, whether as readers or as audience members, to engage in those complicated narratives, and really to engage in narratives that they might have felt improper or unprepared to submit elsewhere, because of stigma, a word we see often associated with what is called mental health, but could be better described as madness or psychiatric disability, or simply because they felt as though no one would particularly want to read it. And I think that the responses that we've gotten to this issue so far, as well as sort of the people that are here, show that that is not the case, and that actually, in this world, to use a very cliched phrase now more than ever, there's really a collective drive to see discussions of madness in relation to the sick, horrific world that we are currently living in. To exist and to not be numb to genocide, to not be numb to the kidnapping and institutionalization and incarceration of our neighbors, one must be a little bit mad. I'm not sure how you can sort of be awake and aware, and not be. And in the interest of not rambling too long, because I really could, I am going to conclude my little spiel with a short excerpt from my notes for a special issue, which is in the front of this. And I want to sort of appreciate, is it ER at Charis, who quoted Sinead O'Connor, and I'm going to do the same in this excerpt. In the online comments of one particularly famous legacy paper, Sinead O'Connor writes, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." These words echoed in my head as I wrote the call for submissions for Mad Dykes' Queer Worlds, and they have only grown louder since. What I need to be reading and writing right now are not works seeking to make sense of the world we have come to live in, but instead make nonsense of it. I do this both to take seriously the fact that trying to survive a consensus reality in which life is wantonly sacrificed at the altar of capital really is crazy making, and because to open our hearts and our minds to impossible strategies of resistance is to carve a trap door into that reality. Lesbians and our accomplices and all readers of Sinister Wisdom know our history, the ways we have made something out of nothing many times over. In abjection, we have made and stolen and traded tools to keep ourselves and our communities alive. We have already become angry. We are already mad, and we can find a way out. In my years as a Mad Dyke, which has been all of them, I have found many ways out, and I'm really excited to sort of join on this next part with you, and to engage with you all on the conversation about Mad Dykes' Queer World. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Cavar. All right, so let's move on to hearing some more readings from this fabulous edition, and then we will bring all of our writers and contributors together. So start thinking of some questions for our writers today. All right, I would like to welcome Aliyah Blattner, who contributed Appetites, Breakfast in the Blue House, Table Games, and No Flush Rule. Aliyah Blattner is a white queer Jewish femme poet and artist living in Lenapehoking. As a ritualist, zinester, and care worker, Blattner seeks to rupture, refuse, and reimagine the Jewish tradition through queer feminist diasporic lens. Blattner's work has been published by Yellow Arrow Journal, New Voices Magazine, Minyan Magazine, Dyke Diaries, and others. You can find Blattner reading on the subway or on Instagram at aliyah.blattner. Please welcome Aliyah Blattner.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly such a privilege to be able to be in conversation with so many other incredible writers, artists, and thinkers. I'm going to begin by reading one of the poems from the issue, speak a bit about how I approach writing around this topic, and then read a little more poetry. So this first one is called Appetites, and it begins with an epigraph from a Mad Dykes woman, whose words are also published in this issue. And this comes from the Real Fat Woman poems, which I think was in the 33rd issue of Sinister Wisdom. It was published a very long time ago, but it's language that I think of often, where she wrote, "I have appetites in my mind that I cannot express in my body, at least not yet. I work on it." So that's the framing for this poem, Appetites. You tell me I can kill the cop in my head by eating a bagel, an extra glob of cream cheese, poppy seeds and sliced tomato, caper spoon from the jar. But who will kill the cop reading over my clipboard at the breakfast table? Who will smash the laptop where the cop takes her notes? When the cop pulls me into her side room, turns on the sound machine, closes the door, how will I defeat her then? There are cops doing intake, cops certified in CBT, cops portioning out granola into tiny ceramic bowls. There are cops taking vitals, cops billing insurance, cops writing on whiteboards in pink bubbly cursive. There are cops shadowing other cops, cops in Downward Dog, cops who swear they aren't cops, calling more cops on me anyways. And I am standing in the bathroom, staring at my own piss while a cop presses her ear against the door. She curls her hand around the brass knob like the grip of a gun warming beneath her fingers. Do not mistake control for care. I spent over a decade tracking my every move, surveilled myself, maintained my own file, imposed an arbitrary set of rules that almost proved to be fatal. Now, I stare down the cop warped across the back of my spoon, map the curve of her chin. I abolish nothing when I take another bite. So for me, madness, like queerness, really is about opening new portals to ways of being and seeing that are not able to exist within conventional modes of existence. And I think that these poems for me are really explorations of the carceral logics and surveillance tactics that often characterize both these pathologies of maybe what we would call high control disorders like eating disorders, as well as the modalities that are implemented in their treatment. So in this issue, I have a couple of sonnets that are included from a longer series, and I was interested in the sonnet form mostly because I think that there's something meaningful to me in analyzing these really highly structured, controlled spaces through formal constraints while also then getting to break them and there being an autonomy in that. So I'm going to read one of the two sonnets from here. This is called Breakfast in the Blue House. And because I love an epigraph and bringing the words of others into my poetry, this one also is framed from The Body Politic, where Opera Fortune Chernik says, "Getting my head out of the toilet bowl was the most political act I have ever committed." Imagine an acrophobe brushing her teeth on a tightrope, leaning over to spit into a kiddie pool 40 feet below. Imagine asking her to floss in midair, rinse with poison. There's an art to feigning normalcy whilst terrified. An extra spoonful of peanut butter might be the greatest act of bravery possible in this lifetime. So when an ER nurse hyperventilates over oatmeal, grab a lemon from the freezer for her to scratch, squeeze. Focus on the string of metal beads twisting in your palm as your mouth opens wide for another bite. And then I think I'm going to end by just reading one more poem. Thank you so much again for making space to hold these words in community with me. This is No Flush Rule. They surveil what comes out. Bloody tampons, mealy shit, urine-stained tissue. I'm not a child, I protest, when reprimanded for flushing without permission. Wouldn't you rather I watch? You're lucky I stand outside the door, that I trust you. I got here by hiding from eyes and walls, failed to outrun the women who scrutinized my boundless and unruly body mind. I donned my veil in a cicada nymph, blot out the moon with my index and middle fingers. I try to explain glissant to my nutritionist. She tells me, that's the disorder talking, as if I do not know my own mind. But I want to learn how to dismantle a system of rules, not exchange them. How did relinquishing control become you taking it from me? Here I am, infant and inmate, microscope slide, burnt ant, redacted file in shorthand. Here I am, running the tap, drying my hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Aliyah. Next, we will hear from Mac Wilder, who contributed Mad Femme Love Song, Conversion Therapy Autoethnography disguised as a review for The Matrix Resurrections, and Control Freak. Mac Wilder is a homebound high femme who holds a master's in disability studies. Their work explores queer crip sexuality, high control Christianity, and their intersection. Their piece Mama at Many Worlds was nominated for Best of the Net 2026, and Semiology Restlessness at Beestung was nominated for Best Short Fiction in 2026. Mac was selected as a fellow for a Bodes Press 2025 Summer Retreat, and their Instagram at Post-Methodism runs on Crip Time. Please welcome Mac.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and I'm so honored to be here and so thrilled to hear so many of these amazing pieces read out loud and in community. I'm going to share two poems from the issue tonight. This first one is about my best friend in high school, who's now my husband. Mad Femme Love Song. She contextualizes me. Tight hold through time, knuckle tendon tether. We joke about the Notebook and cry about Toy Story 2, but mostly it's more subtle. Some stabilizing nudge. This is what it was like. She could name a cage for what it was long before we ever read the term burrito test. Think I spent the 9 years between our friendships searching for girls fluent in breaking down, who'd take my hand and say key, lock, microwave, until our lives became a story I could read, unmuddled long enough to frown. I don't think I like this one. What else is there? And the second piece is Conversion Therapy Autoethnography, disguised as a review for The Matrix Resurrections. The greatest threat to the established social order is Keanu Reeves in black latex, or a sexually semi-active transgender high schooler, depending who you ask. Even if you, ever cautious, don't tell anyone else when the mirror starts to go wobbly, there's still the bit about how some buildings beg to be jumped off. They tend to notice that. Or the part where you'd recognize the stubborn of her smile across mediums and decades and brainwashing techniques. Christ, but it's all so reasonable. The steady in their tones, the rhythm of it, approximating the rush of your blood, ebb and flow of disbelief, the bile lacing the sympathy. my darling rabbit chaser. They will tell you that they will try to convince you that the life you have witnessed is only imagined, that the life you've imagined is less real than the one it got you through. They will get the nicest, most well-intentioned seeming strategist who looks like a Hallmark grandma or Neil Patrick Harris, who's been certified a child advocate or knows all about your video games, to tell you so compassionately how wrong you are. You don't have to not listen. I won't judge you for swallowing whatever they give you or for a fall where gravity still works. My love for you is not contingent on chastity or holiness or survival or resilience. Baby, if you claw your way from that office to the rooftop, look around. You know directions of escape they haven't yet found. Thank you.
Thank you, Mac. And please welcome Crystal Odell, who contributed healers in this issue. Author of Trans Studies, Crystal Odell is a storyteller of trans polyamorous horror practice, writing and revising into the desire for something like a life. Their stories have appeared in Black Warrior Review, Fog Lifter, Split Lip Magazine, Smoke and Mold, Apogee, Strange Horizons, and elsewhere. Crystal was a Lambda Literary Fellow and a Tin House Scholar, nominated for Best of the Net, and anthologized in We're Here, the best queer speculative fiction. She also serves as a hybrid reader for Abode Press. Please welcome Crystal Odell.
Thank you so much, Max. Everybody here is so lovely and so brilliant. It feels really special to be here with you all, so thank you. You're making me feel a lot less alone. I just went through a breakup, it's over as of last week. And you know those stories where you write something and then it kind of comes true. It's fiction, but then it kind of comes true 6 months later or a year later. I kind of feel like that's what this story is. It's fiction, of course, but the relationship is definitely a lot like what I just got out of, where somebody just, no matter how much you love them, thinks you're just too much. Also, everybody's epigraphs were so brilliant. Mine's from the movie Best in Show. We could not talk or talk forever and still find things to not talk about. My noodle pants at the idea of outside. The old dog drools on the trainer's tightly laced all-stars, shameless. Hostile for sensitive groups. Beck warns about the air between us, beyond. The leash squeaks in one of her gloved fists. In the other, my front doorknob jingles. I risk breath. Yap, let's go in sensitive group. The craft circle girls call me Tiny Dawdler. So I zip my windbreaker quick, nip my neck flap on accident and yelp. My allergy bleary eyes search for more in Beck's frown than no. 2 weeks ahead of her schedule, I recite Canine Academy core tenets to prove I listen. Pack leader isn't for the faint at heart, and she must earn dominance before transferring to me. I only want to watch, I say. Beck stares into, stills me, says, stay close, and out we whoosh. Noodle bolts for the lawn. A squirrel jitters up a tree, and my heart leaps for Beck. Tattooed forearm bulging with firm command, she leads how I never could. For 11 years, Noodles and Lee's breakfasts would be waiting at 6:30 a.m. At 7:30 p.m., 3 popcorn bowls brimmed with buttered fluff. Time soured after retirement from private practice. My short stories shrank, shorter, until not a word, and the wall clock owl flapped her wings so fast she might as well have worn a halo. I swallowed my bitterness after Lee trashed the medicine cabinet, my autonomy to choose a painless exit. He encouraged healthier hobbies, and I almost died laughing. Lee tended Valentine's Day roses, salad greens, a pecan pie tree, threatened me with soiled gloves, but never once, often caught my blue bones in pillowy hugs, mulchy, musky, mine. Lee liked chamomile and quiet, his beard noble and trim, day trips to my red-eye fantasies, the gentle motions of a delicate heart. And when he scolded, "You're being silly," he might have meant Noodle. He might have meant me. For half a block, Noodle chokes herself on her leash, clawing for each taut inch, and confirms my failure as a mother. "Heel," Beck says. In starts and stops, Noodle falls into stride. I look back, leashed to Beck's face, Dutch braids thwapping her shoulders to the beat, and back and recall my undergraduate crush from queer studies, the nights we shared notes, saliva, souls, until I begged her to make it hurt. In her lecture on internalized misogyny, Me Too boy broken, only to be replanted, Lee and me, roots. "Wait," Beck orders at the end of the block. "Cross" comes next. We go together. Good girl. Pricks my insides, a shower of sparks. My years as a therapist advise remain professional. I'm thirsty for the grace I granted clients from ferrying other trans women around the iceberg of low sex drive. I know how gendered sexuality can be, how reorientation can sever imagination from desire. And I know what healing means. Try new things, breathe out shame, hear the body, help in a dusty box marked practice. "Wait, wait," Beck says, and I want to, but the block we march is mine, and an oncoming couple pushes a stroller up the sunny, tree-lined sidewalk at the barren widow with the feral dog who circles like a bird of prey. Around their scrutiny, I cut a wide berth, tumbling into a neighbor's lawn, and my 2 roomy slip-ons hot glued with flair, courtesy the craft girls. A miracle. Beck catches me. Noodle gallops loose. Coolly, in a bouquet of marijuana smoke and armpits, Beck hands me a grass-stained slip-on, says, "We'll find you good walking shoes next time." My heart tumbles as she saunters to rein Noodle. The dog woofs at a tree, springing as if today she might fly into the branches, nose a nest, and squeeze a hissing squirrel in her maw, sinking bloodless, the raw delight of capture and release. "Am I okay?" the passing couple asks. It doesn't feel fair how no simple answer, withholding access to my interior, sends them huffing. A googly eye pin and banana with a cartoon smile, remains of my ruined shoes, glee beside the purse-sized liquor bottle I stumbled on. 4 roses, like a lover's name. The label blushes me. After Lee suggested night walks for my restless spirit before bed, I found her in my slippers like a sleepwalker, Cinderella, my preferred nickname granted by the Bodega boys. "How far did you go?" Lee would ask, eyebrows arched over a book. "Around the world," I lied, until the night his bed lamp was dark. Leashed, Noodle licks me, sits, waits. Beck doesn't scold or ask. Her eyes reflect what I tell myself. Apologize for my mistake. For me. Cross, X says. We go together. I get what I deserve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And now, Dot Persica, who contributed M/sad cartoon. Dot Persica is a Dyke writer, illustrator, and performer born in Naples, Italy. They are a co-founder of the queer Italian collective Strasfica, with which they publish yearly zines and organize community events. The themes they most love to explore in their work are language, disability, rebirth, family, and community. You can find Dot at Melantra Persicare, and you'll get the correct spelling of that in the chat. Please welcome Dot Persica.
I'm so sorry. I did not make that easy for you at all. Um, Thank you so much. This is so lovely today. I'm so happy. It is, I think 2 a.m. for me right now. I'm not even sure anymore, but it feels it could be any time. I'm just so glad I got to listen to everyone. My contribution is a little bit different from what was read so far because it's a cartoon. When talking to Cavar, we decided I would just talk about it because I would feel really silly just reading part of it out loud to you. So I guess you're just gonna have to get your hands on a copy of the issue. So, I mean, I was looking at it in front of me. It's just one page. When I started to write it, for some reason I wanted it to only be a page, and I did not decide what was going to be in it beforehand. I just started writing. And this is something that for me functions only when I'm using cartoons as a medium. It just feels a lot easier, and I think part of it is the fact that you are able to express a lot more than just what you were describing with words, which aids me in my madness because language is not enough most of the time. And it's so precious and something that is missing when we are having conversations in person. This I submitted this in summer 2024, I think, and it's so crazy to look at because I feel so differently now about the things that I was writing about, and that's really what I love about all of these pieces is probably we're going to change and we're going to still have those pieces of ourselves to look back on. I started thinking about I'm diagnosed autistic. I say diagnosed not because that makes it real, but because that's what they say I am. I don't know. Someone said I was autistic, and I decided to use that word for myself as well. This is what I use to explain my oddly high pain tolerance. Which is what I started to explore in this cartoon. And not only do I have a very high pain tolerance, but also everything sort of feels the same. Whether there is a devastating event in my life or something minor, I feel everything at the same intensity. This cartoon starts a little bit abruptly, which is how most of my conversations feel. And I go on to explore how that manifests in other moments in my life. I once had a very small fracture in a very small bone in my foot and didn't notice until the day after. Not that it didn't hurt, but it didn't hurt enough for me to think anything major was wrong. But then I started to think about my lesbianism through that lens. Because the way that I see my lesbianism, there was no other choice but for me to be a lesbian, but that does not mean there was no other option. I think we always have the option to comply if we choose to, and many of us do for safety or for whatever other reason. in my case, that's where my madness comes in, where even if I wanted to, I would not be able to because I simply don't understand the ways in which I am supposed to comply. I can study cis heteropatriarchal norms for as long as I want to. I have tried in my past. Don't comprehend and cannot replicate what they want me to be. So, in a way, knowing that and knowing what is expected of me, and then still choosing to live my life as a dyke and as a trans person, is in a way choosing pain, or that is how I felt at the time. And I don't not feel that way anymore, but I can tell that in the moment that I made this, I was feeling particularly focused on the pain. And I remember I was also actually going through a breakup, which I empathize with the previous reading. And many, many things that I was realizing about myself and also about my gender identity. And it is incredibly painful to be anything but what our society wants us to be, obviously. And it is very painful, I still believe that, to be queer in this world. Um, but even in that, and I mean, right now is a manifestation of that to me. There is so much solace in not being alone, which I think is everything. And I'm really thankful that I got to hear everybody's readings so far, and I'm really excited to read what the issues has in store. I still haven't received my copy on this side of the globe, but I know that I will. I don't think that being a dyke is a part of my pursuit of trying to experience pain at its fullest potential anymore. But I do think that whatever pain that comes with it, I'm glad I have a high tolerance for it. And I'm going to continue getting hurt and sharing my heart with all of you. Thank you so much for having me and for letting me talk about my little cartoon.
Thank you, Dot. And for folks who have the issue, if you have it, is page 74, m/sad cartoon. Just incredible. I took a picture of one of the panels. It was so spot on. Thank you so much for your work, Dot. And at this time, I would love to invite all of our panelists up on the screen. I know that our audience has some great questions for y'all. I certainly have about 17 over here, give or take. So yeah, let's get everyone up on the screen and we'll kick off with a question. All right. All right, my first question that I want to make sure that all of our panelists are able to answer, and it was something Cavar and I were talking about just yesterday. Given the range of forms in this collection, there's so many different approaches. I would love for each of you to speak to your craft on how you work, how you chose your form in this particular issue, and most importantly, what mad creativity means in practice for you.
I can go first if anyone else wants to. One of the things that I was thinking about a lot with this question And for me, like, and some people talked about like body mindedness and things throughout their readings. And I think for me, like my madness is also inextricable from my like chronic illness and crip embodiment. And so as someone with like myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, among a bunch of other stuff, pacing is like a really central part of my life and of everything I practice, including writing. And so trying to exist within my limits and capacity. And so for writing that expresses itself in, kind of defiance of a lot of writing culture norms. So, nothing against people who have a daily writing practice, but that is, something that's really emphasized in a lot of, quotes and programs and, communities. And even just like kind of emphasis on like discipline and on putting certain amounts of scheduled labor into writing, and that's not something that my body is capable of whatsoever, because my capacity fluctuates a lot. So I've found myself over the past couple of years doing a lot of my writing in my head, and I'll be thinking about a piece for a long time before any of it is actually like kind of expressible on the page. And so I think that, especially the two poems that I read tonight kind of came out all at once because they had been generating and had been ready for so long, and kind of trusting that cycle and that it will come back again and that there will be more writing after the rest is definitely something that I've been trying to learn over the past couple of years.
I'd love to just like hop on that and just echo like what you're saying about writing against these conventions. All we're talking about compliance seems to be a word that keeps echoing here. The sense of like what is normal, what is a writer, what do these people do, how does what does a fiction writer do versus a poetry, right? It's like all these boxes on boxes, and I sort of attempt to do something very similar, like that has helped me with like transition, which is just like listening to, yeah, see like what feels bad and what feels good, but also in writing and like not taking it for like believing that to write something good, you have to suffer and suffer and suffer and like sit here and like not enjoy it. To me, that just sounds so miserable. And like, I just like thinking, just like in my personal, like if I was like to live with that in my personal life, like, like that's the kind of life I don't want to be living, right? Like that's the reason why I am trans and queer. Is because I don't want to just be enduring this awfulness. So basically, I'm just been thinking a lot lately about like if I'm not having a good time, like if I'm not laughing and I'm not crying and I'm not feeling something when I'm working, why am I doing it? So I just stop or just I'll do something else. I'm like this. I need to delete this or I need to add more words. I need to like write into the feelings. Otherwise, it just doesn't feel worth it to me. And that might mean like who is this piece for? What is the genre? How does it fit into such and such as submission standards? I don't know and I don't care. So I just keep going until I don't know.
I kind of bounce off of that. I feel like in many ways, this writing is not reflective of most of my creative work. And in some ways, that feels special to me, where on a formal level, the language is really stripped back. These are more like short form constrained poems. And the majority of my creative work is really working in these like surrealist, fantastical, imagistic, like religious landscapes, which is really not present in this writing at all. And I think that having this counterpoint where things that seem so absurdist and extreme are actually stripped down to this really like micro focused experience almost creates that kind of like there's a mad energy to that. And I think that I mentioned glissant in one of my poems and this gesture towards like opacity and the safety of being undetectable to the state, to institutions, which is so much more crucial now than ever before, potentially depending on how we're all positioned. But I think writing into this topic provided me an opportunity to have kind of a documentation that I got to choose the terms of, where this desire for legibility of an experience that oftentimes folks in these spaces don't have the autonomy to self-determine their own narrative around whether that's psychiatric incarceration or being in any kind of like clinical setting period. There is like an irony to seeking control to the point that you lose it entirely. And I think that there's something very special in getting to turn to language, to image, to sound, to form as a way to kind of take back that autonomy over an experience that can be determined by others of what that means for you, for your body, for your health, for your mind, and the way that you move through your community.
Thank you, Aliyah. I think the perfect medium for me to really let go of even just this idea of having to be understandable and having to be understood and imagining some sort of other who is also sitting there and judging and reading into things that maybe is not even or not even what you're saying is a literally you can see even as I'm speaking to you. If I don't have images to help me, it's very difficult for me to just let go of all of that and just express myself. So for me, there was no question that this was going to be a cartoon. It helps me in ways that I can't describe, because it just bringing that image, presenting it to someone, the same script, if you gave it to three different illustrators, even just three different people, you would get completely different cartoons from it. And I think that is really what makes it so helpful and really aids me in expressing what I need to. So with that, and then not picking a structure, not scripting it beforehand, just letting myself write. That was something that I really wanted to try for this because I felt like I was allowed to because of what the theme was.
I also want to say quickly that in terms of editorial and curation choices, I think just to go back to Aliyah's point, and I have to say when I received Aliyah's submission, my jaw kind of hit the floor because I was reminded sort of brutally that there are no experiences in the world that are unique and that someone else was also pathologized for trying to explain theory to a dietitian. And also that the opacity and subtle and really elegant discussion of noncompliance in Aliyah's work and in works throughout this issue are really gesturing at the overarching theme that I wanted Madness to take in the magazine. The shape I wanted it to take was this exploration across forms and across genres of what it means to write for an audience of us, to write for a collective audience that was not constantly in a state of submission to the psychiatric gaze, and to write in a way that sort of unshouldered, at least for a moment, the kind of presuppositions that guide our behavior, presuppositions that, if we don't follow them, can end in incarceration, can end in abuse, can end in death, whether social, material, or both. And I think that the pieces that ended up getting submitted, the sheer breadth of forms and approaches and themes really allowed for that to happen.
Absolutely, and thank you everyone for your generous responses to that question. I know we have brought up a few people that have been with all of y'all during your work, including Sinead O'Connor. Best in Show was mentioned, but also beloved Elena Dykewoman makes an appearance. And so I was wondering if there were other writers, artists, and thinkers who felt in conversation with y'all when you were putting this together or writing your pieces.
I don't have, necessarily specific names off the top of my head, but writing the piece about conversion therapy, um, and I mean both of these pieces, I was really in, kind of the mindset that I was in high school and during the like psychiatric abuse and like spiritual abuse that I was experiencing at that time. Because I very much feel that like theory has saved my life and transformed my life, but I wanted to reach to that person that was pre-theory, that that had no glimpse of anyone who had had a similar experience. And so I think that the style really came through in the Matrix conversion therapy piece of like a lot of the slam poets that I was listening to when I was in high school and the way that they would present a story. And I mean, some well-known folks like Sarah Kay, but also slightly less so like Jean Ann Verlee and Carrie Rudinsky. And though that was kind of my first glimpse into like mad community as a teenager.
Yeah, I just follow up once again. I love what you said that like theory has helped save your life. I know that isn't true for everybody, but it's definitely been that for me. Um, I think Cavar, you said earlier that you love these pieces because they don't tie with a little bow, right? It's like they don't end neatly. They're not chicken soup for the soul. Um, and that's like the reality. But meanwhile, I'm like suffering because I like want it. Like I feel, I still feel like if I had some answer for why I am the way that I am or the world is the way that it is, that maybe it would feel better. So I often just like run to theory for some sort of help, which is at the very least keeps me distracted for a while. Um, the book that has probably had the biggest impact in this line of thinking of madness and queerness is Cameron Awkward's Awkward Riches, The Terrible We. Just his theories about maladjustments. It has just stuck with me for so many years. And yeah, informs the work as well. Letting things just be what they are, what they need to be.
I can quickly jump in. I feel like I think about the idea of lineage, not in a heteronormative textual inheritance way, but in like a queer time traveling on the page way really frequently. And I feel like Alejandro Pizarnik's Extracting the Stone of Madness and also Galloping Hour, so both her like French and Spanish written work or pieces that the way that she thinks about like this surrealist, like queer mad diaspora experience is something that I find really compelling. And also Andrea Abi Karam, who does both like performance pieces and also like written poetry. I feel like the ways that they are thinking about like the political and anti-fascist movement building in conjunction with like Satanism is something that I find very compelling and definitely informed this work and other projects that I do. So it's exciting to get to share their names into this space.
I don't feel like I was in conversation with anyone per se. I feel like that would be complicated for me. Again, I would have had to draw little stick figures for them to understand, and then we would have been there. But what I do feel is present whenever I sit down to write about specifically my experience with my autism and how that relates to my gender identity and my sexuality is I think a lot about specifically Audre Lorde's writing about her childhood. Obviously, we have very different experiences, but something that really sticks with me is the way she talks about specific incidents in her childhood where I'm not going to diagnose Audre Lorde, but something was a little bit different about her, and I think she would have agreed. Um, and there are episodes where it's just the way that she writes about how confusing it is as a child to try so hard to do what you're told and to do the right thing. And then somehow you're trying so hard and you're still being punished because the result was somehow not what you thought you were doing, even though you were trying to follow word by word what you were being told. I'm thinking about this one specific incident of um, her using the wrong tool to draw, whereas I think, being told she was supposed to write with a specific pencil and draw with a different one, and then things like that where you focus on the wrong thing, always focusing on the wrong thing and thinking you're doing the right thing, and growing up with that and not understanding why. And I mean, the way that she writes about it is so masterful, and so natural. And then there's this Italian writer called Goliarda Sapienza, who has one specific book that I don't know if it was translated to English, but it's about her time in a mental asylum in Italy, and specifically afterwards, where she is in therapy after getting electroshock therapy and trying to get her memory back. And it's an incredible, incredible book, because she talks about the gaps in her own memory and filling them with previous memories or dreams, and it's so lucid in its madness that I really, really super recommend it. And then in some weird way, because it's a cartoon, and because that is my main medium, I do think of Aliyah sometimes, because I do feel like there are traces of madness in Nana for sure, and that does inspire me. Yeah, that's what I have.
Thank you, Dot. And just due to time, I will ask Cavar the same question, and also any ending thoughts that you'd like to share with us, Cavar, on this incredible issue.
Hi, thank you so much for this incredible night. I think it went amazing, and I really enjoyed hearing about everyone's sort of interlocutors. For me, as an editor, I think I would have to think more about who my editorial interlocutors are. Although certainly my mentor and fellow queer crip, trans mad academic and writer J. Logan Smilges is, they have done amazing editorial and mentorship work, and I certainly look up to them a lot. I think when it comes to sort of like the intersection of scholarly discourse and creative writing, which is where I find myself usually, I'm thinking with KJ Saranowski and Megan Milks and Cameron Awkward Rich, and Larissa Lai and Samuel R. Delaney, and certainly many others, Eli Clare certainly too, many others that I could think of. Um, but, to comment more on this event, I think it was really a testament to the importance of a space like this to be able to sort of openly share our writing and share our thoughts, and also be really generous with the care that we offer each other. I've noticed and shared myself a lot of emojis and compliments, and just had a moment to be really affectionate and really silly in the chat, which I sort of think is a very underrated way of being in community together, including literary community. So I really appreciate you all being here for this, being earnest, being emotional, being silly, however you come to this space, it's appreciated.
Thank you so much. And to all of our speakers and contributors, editors, and to each one of you for joining us tonight. I want to thank Mel Oliver for being our scribe and our tech maven tonight. Thank you to our partners at Charis Books and More, and our monthly sustainers and donors. We hope you'll continue supporting Sinister Wisdom as we celebrate our 50th anniversary. And we invite you to share tonight's event, subscribe, or join our community in whatever way feels right. As a reminder, the video from tonight will be available at the Sinister Wisdom website and YouTube tomorrow or Thursday. And coming up Thursday, January 29th at 7 p.m., we have a lovely tribute to Doris Davenport with Brianna Simone Jones. And then our book club meets again Sunday, February 8th at 4 p.m. We'll be discussing The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, convened by Yeva Johnson. We look forward to seeing you. As always, you can keep up with us at sinisterwisdom.org/events. I want to just quote Crystal for tonight. Everyone here is so lovely and brilliant. I couldn't agree more. Tonight we will dance to Screwed by the one and only Janelle Monáe. Mel, let the music begin.
Oh my God.